let the insanity begin.
Yeah, and that's what we start with. Let the insanity begin. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the experience, and welcome, Sharita Star. We are having a special episode of Mercury retrograde, like surviving Mercury retrograde. This one seems to be a pretty intense one right now, and we're smack dab in the middle of it. Today is what, Monday, May 9th, and Sharita is an expert numerologist and astrologer, and she specializes in retrogrades. And so we're so happy to have you on to help us navigate this really bizarre time. And so if you're watching, everyone, energetically, if things are like bonkers for you, you are not alone. So that this show is for you. Take it away, Sharita.
That's right. And as always, thank you for having me on, and thank you to your audience for being reachable and teachable, because that's what these times are really truly all about. And the more reachable and teachable we remain, the less insane it will seem. That is how I kind of really look at this. And I'm going to tap into a very strong. My biggest thing right now is compulsiveness versus consciousness. Your choice. This is very important to get through what's cooking right now. And so we haven't even, but you're absolutely correct that the energy is like WTF, and we haven't even started the retrograde yet. It starts on May 10th, which is tomorrow. But what
Ah.
we've been experiencing over the last few days is this station. So when Mercury's about to retrograde, about 3 to 4 days before that will happen, he's stopped at the degree point he's going to turn around at. So he's not moving at all, which is why the energy feels more funky, even though the retrograde technically isn't even engaging yet. And then that same station happens as he turns retrograde. He'll do that 7:47 a.m. on May 10th. And then he takes another few days to get off that. And this is starting at the 4th degree of Gemini. And I have a workshop available for anybody who's interested. It's Mastering Mercury Retrograde. It's really about mastering spring, because not only do we have this Mercury retrograde energy to contend with, we're looping it all, interlaying it with an eclipse season simultaneously. So there's a lot going on.
Talk about the
Pardon?
eclipse season. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
I usually have my headphones, but I forgot them at home. But talk a little bit about the eclipse season too.
Oh yes, definitely. But one of the things I want to touch upon is, and I've used these, and if you go and access the workshop that's available, it's Mastering Spring, it's Mastering the Energies under this current Mercury retrograde. It's an cooperative workshop I did with Media Man and Bernstein, and basically I get you through all the nerdy math, all the dates where things are just super, and what you need to be conscious versus compulsive with in your response versus reactions. But this 4 degrees of Gemini that this particular station is happening at right now. So this is the imagery of 4 in Chaldean numerology.
Shiny. Here, tilt it just a little bit. Okay, there we go. Yeah.
Now, you see
that's like a column that's all crumbly.
And how do we know how it's going to fall exactly? We have no idea how the end result of that's going to happen. So this is the very beginning of this retrograde.
Uh-oh.
I mean, and everybody I know is experiencing this unexpected, and 4 energies about expecting the unexpected. It's going to cause extreme disturbances, but it needs reinvention. That's why they're happening. The disturbances are happening because there's this really underlying pulse of, all right, well, the old established structure, that old foundation is no longer sustainable. So, I mean, we've talked a lot about earth changes. There's a lot. I don't know if we will be seeing, it's very plausible. We'll be seeing at this time some literal mama earth upsets, like, she's going to shake a little bit or have some impact with, various storms. We already know, I mean, there's fires going on in places again, here in America at least, but there's things going on in the world that they're upsetting and disruptive and disturbing, and just like, well, just like that image, we don't know how it's going to fall down.
Right. So I'm looking up fires in there. So there's fires, we could do fires, earthquakes, tsunamis, tidal or tornadoes, hurricanes.
The hurricanes maybe a little later.
They're later. Or I guess
for us anyway. Well, for America, we typically don't start that till about August. That's when they start.
Then there are cyclones in the other part of the world. Oh my gosh, current wildfires burning in the US. Do I even really want to see this?
You don't even want to know. Yeah.
Okay, New Mexico.
Yeah, there's a lot out. I think there's some really pretty nasty ones right now in New Mexico.
Yeah,
I don't know.
47 fires in New Mexico, 81 fires in Texas. Excuse me. Yeah. 32 fires in Oklahoma, 62 in Arizona, 3 in Nebraska, 15 in Colorado, 9 in Kansas. I mean, they have everything. Holy smokes. Wow. So crazy. 81 fires in Texas. 62 in Arizona.
That's a lot. That's a lot more states than they are typically known to be in.
Yeah, I'm not seeing any in California.
California is typically your biggest. Obviously we've been seeing that for God knows how long at this point. But I find it odd that it's in all these other states. Not that hey, the lack of water is going to end up doing that, and if humans aren't careful, then I guess things happen. And I won't be accusational, but I do wonder how many of them weren't exactly accidental per se. I'm a critical thinker, and I don't always believe everything I'm told as to why it happened or how it happened, but I do know the energy is saying things are not being presented to us as they appear right now. That's a huge thing in America's chart, natal chart, when you look at our forecast as a nation. And not that global, that whole global scope is not the same, but in America, the theme has been going on for quite much the past year. Everything we're being presented is perhaps not the exact truth, in some way, shape, or form. So I, have been saying since 2020 began, and this whole journey of healing and everything happening on the planet, is, utilize your discernment. Don't necessarily take everything at face value. Now, under a cycle right now, like a Mercury retrograde, that general rule of thumb should be tenfold. Because what happens, especially under the Mercury retrograde, is that human error is the highest under a Mercury retrograde pass than any other time of the year.
Wow.
So this is whether it was 10 years ago, 100 years ago, whatever. Anytime it's Mercury retrograde, human errors have always occurred, and things happen and they need to be corrected and ironed out later. So especially concerning the information we are perceiving, because Mercury is always about transferring of information. How do we perceive it? What is all that about? Well, we're going to be given a lot of things here in the next 3 weeks that may or may not be a form of the truth or not. So we just want to be careful with that one. Where this is happening for America is in And I also want to stress to people what we're going to be experiencing into the first portion of this particular Mercury retrograde, especially through the 22nd of May. It will not end until June 3rd. But from the 22nd of May through June 3rd, the energy is in Taurus. It's no longer in Gemini. It'll switch on the 22nd of May. But the first preview show, as I kind of want to call it, there's going to be another cycle coming up that will conclude the last 2 months of 2022 and open 2023. And that is a very intense cycle called Mars retrograde. This will also be completely in the sign of Gemini. So what we're watching and will be watching as far as, what things are showing up to be contended with and how, I don't know about you, but if you've tapped into some things, people are pretty angry, and boy, they're not really too shy about getting caught on camera expressing that anger. I think it's like people are getting like, what we're going to watch with that, especially through the 22nd of May, is just a preview show of what that Mars retrograde is going to dole out in the fall. So this is just like, get ready. And start being prepared, because the end of this year is even more jacked up energetically, and not in a good way, than what we're already going to be watching.
So when does Mars retrograde start? What are the dates for Mars?
It starts October 30th, and that will not end until January 12th.
Oh, so it'll be an interesting Halloween. Now I look at what you're saying from a healer standpoint, because or just like an individual sort of highly sensitive person standpoint, because I was just noticing this morning, and I feel like I'm being guided to share this, and I'm curious what you think about it. Is I usually do a meditation every morning, and when I was waking up, I had a bit of a head cold this weekend, and so just getting myself to a place of center. And I usually just drop into my heart space, and that's usually the expansion that I need. But what I noticed today is that there was a whole lot, like my heart chakra was releasing images much in the way that my brain likes to release images. So just like images, almost like schizophrenically, like images that were just like coming through. And I was like, is this mine? Like, is this my energy? And it wasn't. And it was really like needing a deep clearing. And I had to just go through whatever it was to just acknowledge what was happening in my heart space, and then allow it to clear, and claiming like what energy was mine, what wasn't, which is sort of standard protocol for, clearing anyway. And then this huge, white light energy with like this golden, almost hieroglyphics came into my field. And now my heart just feels like a completely, like it's been cleansed, my heart chakra in general, front and back. But it was unlike anything I had seen before. And it felt very like this energy. It felt, that I'm seeing like tumultuous, chaotic, confusing, I know logically, do not attach myself to any of the weird shit that I'm seeing, because it's like, don't apply meaning to it. Don't give it, any sort of credibility. Just let it be, let it float out, and just anchor into what it is that my truth is. And I think that really, to me, that relates to what you're saying about inner discernment. Because I know for me, if I'm paying attention to all the chaos that's going on around me, I just get totally depressed. Like I get really depressed and discouraged. And
we're not going to look at it and be all joyous. That's because there's no deliverance of joy in any of it.
And there's a way, and I think it's a way of moving beyond it. Pardon? Yeah. I said, I think there's a way of moving beyond it so that it doesn't.
Absolutely.
Yes. And this is what you're talking about with navigating the retrogrades in a way that's graceful, is like, how do we how do we take something that is sort of a stressor, to the system
And let it,
and flip it
yeah.
in a way that is more like nourishing? Because I think on the same end of the spectrum, where it's like we're being shown this sort of like difficult, sort of stagnant, heavy, chaotic, confusing energy, it's also an opportunity, as you say, like recalibrate, introspection, what's real. I noticed for me, like, and maybe this is a part of the astrology too, you would know, is this total, like, everything I've been
Look that
doing.
up for you, actually.
What? You're
We
pulling
can
that
look
up?
that right up
Oh,
for you.
yeah, it's great to have the right
I'm
friend.
gonna I'm gonna affirm why you're feeling all this funky stuff. Yeah.
So what
No.
I'm feeling is this this sort of this introspection about what I do and what my priorities are. And I think I may have mentioned to you, yeah, this all of a sudden, this really strong desire to be like connecting with emergency services, like signing up with as a volunteer with the Red Cross, and like work, just working really interpersonally with humanity in a way that is like, so the work that I do is much more consciousness oriented, but there's
Right.
something really sort of like flesh and blood kind of calling to,
Emergency relief kind of
yeah,
understanding.
just like, or just being
Absolutely.
there in a way that people need communal, community
They're gonna need,
support. Like,
they're going to need this. Absolutely.
yeah, and it's all of a sudden just like, you need to do this.
Well, that's not a inaccurate download, as I would say.
Do you see
Uh,
something like that in my chart, or is it just more of a collective download, do you think?
well, you're pulling out of right now, you're finishing up a two personal year in your life. So you've been nurturing the seeds you planted in 2020 to 21, May to May of that passage of time. So you had all these new beginnings be planted May 2020 to May 2021, and now you've been nurturing them over the past year. So wanting to get into the space where I'm going to be that chicken soup for everybody's soul, and we do that very hands-on sometimes. And now you're heading into your 3 year, which is going to expand and grow upon these things, but you will be taking a lot of action, and you'll be re-educating yourself. And I remember you had said to me, you've done this before, you've been certified, but maybe you need like some updated licensing or
Yeah, I'm not certified
certifications.
anymore. Yeah, of a
Right, how those things
SANT.
expire.
Yeah.
And where, I mean, you are like right now, it's like interesting because the planet that's you're in charge of your new year coming in just like, a couple of weeks, a week or so away, is right off your ascendant right now. And it's like just saying, hey, Nora, we're on it, and we're going to take new approaches to life, and we're going to be as generous as possible. But this is all very Piscean energy for you because the Jupiter is in Pisces, and as that's coming over your ascendant, it's Pisces is like the world empath, it's the world, healer, and I'm gonna have all the sympathy in the world to just do what compassionately needs to be done and understanding, and it just doesn't matter what it takes. We're
That's
going to do it.
exactly what that is. That's exactly what I'm feeling. It's like
Yeah.
this inner urge to be so selfless right now. I don't, and
Yes. It's a
I don't
very,
know.
very selfless energy. Yes.
Yes, which is fun. I mean, I'm great at knowing what I want, but it's sort of it feels very maternal on a sort of like mama earth, like
Yes.
being
Yeah.
sort of like the communal mother energy, which is not, I mean, it's somewhat new. I mean, I am a mom, and and I feel that way towards my own children, but I've not really felt like it's my job to take care of people before. I mean, I do in my work, but all of a sudden it's like feeling like, oh, I need to be that all of a sudden,
Mhm.
which is so
Yeah.
interesting. It's like, really?
What?
That's not
And
familiar.
I'm not used to that. Well, I mean, it's interesting too, because, and I wanted to touch back too of what you were saying about how, you woke up this morning and you were in this amazing like heart chakra, and your heart chakra was giving you like more visuals than, like you said, like connecting the brain. But as we all woke up this morning, the moon is void in Leo.
Mhm.
Okay. So we've been in a void since about 6 something this morning. It will not lift till almost 7 o'clock this evening, at least on the East Coast time. But Leo is the heart ruled sign. And it was a very intense time, these 12 hours, to take reflection, connecting to the heart space. So I just love how tapped in you are to that. And in your life, it is about how you serve. That's where the void is happening. So it's bringing you all of this. Well, how am I going to serve? How am I going to help people? How am I going to be selfless?
Mhm.
Um, and I just loved how you tapped right into that delicious
That's so
ability to
funny how that
get
happened.
into it consciously.
Yeah.
What's happening. What's also tricky about what'll happen by 7:47 a.m. when Mercury goes retrograde is that it's stationed to square to the moon when it happens, which I don't know what's going to plausibly happen anywhere, but it's a very tense start emotionally to the
Oh,
retrograde as
uh-huh.
well.
So people will
So it's
be
an
feeling
emotional
kind
retrograde. It's an emotional retrograde, and plus May overall on a universal level is it's an 11/2 universal month, which is just now that in the charming imagery of things. There's that card. Where'd you go? And this, if you are following along on the infamous charming Facebook, this is one of my pinned posts on my page. But this, and I know it's something that you like. I'm trying to get this.
turn it just a
This
little
is
bit more the other way.
it's the
Otherwise
trick of the reflection. So this
it's
is
like that.
the energy of 11. It's a master number 1, but it's the root vibration of 2, lunar guided, which is where all these emotions are coming up. And this is all over the world. It's not just here in America. And this is where the Chaldean numerology behind this one says it's a lion muzzled, a clenched fist. And that's what and when you have a master number, any master number, you've always got 2 of the same thing standing side by side. And the mastery of a master number is allowing them to remain individual without taking away who they are in order to cooperate.
Mm,
Otherwise, there's always this separation happening. Like,
at
no,
odds.
no,
Yeah. Yeah.
no, no. No, you have to come like this. And here's what the problem with humanity across the board is: nobody's allowed to respect their differences right now
Yeah. It's
because you're
weird.
being forced to choose.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the more you're being forced to choose, the more, I mean, like I said, watching these
The
people
more that
supposedly,
resistance feels, that the more that it feels like that, like,
yeah, and it's like it's amazing to me that people think screaming and yelling in anger is going to resolve what's happening. It won't. I'm sorry. You
it
have to come back and deal with this in a peaceful fashion, but that is not happening for quite some time.
well, there's your
This is going to be quite a journey, and especially as we discussed about that Mars retrograde coming at the end of the year. This is just the beginning of how ugly
Mhm.
it's going to seem. It
Mhm.
doesn't mean everybody has to choose ugly, but they're going to keep ramping ugly.
Well, it's that
Like, we
choice.
haven't seen ugly yet.
It's that choice
We
point.
haven't seen ugly yet.
It's that choice.
Pardon?
It's that choice point that you're introducing, that you introduced at the beginning of conscious versus compulsion. And
Yes.
yeah, and that's something that I feel like in my work I'm wanting to, really double down on in a deeper way, is just how to help people understand that it doesn't have to be difficult to decide to be conscious, but you do have to be diligent and consistent. And I mean, if
And
you're not consistent,
committed and consistent.
yeah,
Yes.
you have to just decide, I'm going to do this. Because the way I see it is we all have idiosyncrasies, we all have tendencies in our personality, and how do we manage that? It's not so, a lot of times when people really come to me and they're working with me in a way that's like, I'm struggling so much and I want it to end, when is it going to be over? And my answer to them is, you're always going to have to manage. I also tell my children this: you're going to always have to manage yourself. You're always going to have the opportunity to go towards your
Yes.
best self or go away from your best self. And there's no perfection here. It's just really going with whatever you're capable at the moment, but always sort of leaning into managing yourself, ourselves, to the best of our
Mhm.
abilities. And
That's right.
and it doesn't have to be hard. It's just use the tools that are available. They're everywhere. Use them though, right? And
You
you're
gotta pick up the tools and use them. They don't do you any good sitting in your toolbox that hasn't been opened in a really long time. I
and
mean,
yelling at the
you
toolbox.
can't fix the broken sink without the wrench, you know? If you don't pick up the wrench and fix the broken sink, if it's broken, then you can't fix the sink. So the
Yeah.
tool is there to guide you, absolutely. And what you do beautifully for people, what I do with understanding your forecast, your rhythm, your timing, don't be focusing over here when you should be focused over there. It's
Totally.
it's that simple. It's a tool. It's a map. You can use it or you don't have to. That's up to you. But how easy or how struggled you would like your experience to be, it's all in your own power.
Yeah.
It's
Totally.
always going to be in your power unless you give your power away. And
Yeah.
that's another thing happening with our humanity's just giving their power up.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
they kind of did that a long time ago, but people don't realize how much they've given their power away. And if you keep doing that, well, you're going to struggle. This is really going to become an interesting experience if you have given your personal power away.
Yeah. Well, it's an
I know I don't want to be saying that in fear to people and make you, but you got to stand up
mm-hmm.
and stand for something, or
Well,
you'll fall for anything. I'm
well,
sorry.
it's a recognition of, I mean, I see people going through this on a really minuscule level, like a little fine-tuned level. And um if we at any point inadvertently or intentionally give away our power, it is something that can be reclaimed. And ultimately, it's an experience that we're having as a human, in our human experience, that we're navigating. And there is hope in that. But it's more of a, what you're talking about, Sharita, and what we're experiencing right now is the difference between an incredibly bumpy journey, one that's like, it reminds me of a recent airplane ride that I had. We went, our
How
family.
much turbulence are you going to have?
Exactly. And I get really nauseous on, I motion sick. I get so motion sick. And so I wasn't prepared. I wasn't prepared. And it was, one of those journeys. And we all know that when a journey really sucks, it's really painful. It's like a second by second, like, hang on,
Mhm.
hang in there, like, just to, just one second at a time, as opposed to like being able to be like, okay, I'm good, I can make it to this next sort of hour or day. But when we're in the like the traumatic moment of everything is sucking and we're just really in a second by second unfolding, and it just feels like agony. That's what we can avoid if we're, prepared. But if we are going to go on the bumpy journey, just also know that it is temporary and we can always regain our power.
Absolutely. You can reclaim it anytime you want.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's nobody stopping you but yourself.
Yeah.
If you have found yourself in a well, and like you said,
In a tailspin.
even if that happens, it's a learning experience, and it hopefully it becomes a growth experience that, wow, look what I did. Oh, I can step back, be discerning, and recognize, oh my God, I made a disempowered choice,
Mhm.
which is what being human is about. I mean, we're here to learn. If we don't make a mistake every so often, well, we're never going to learn much of anything. There's no fault in it. Absolutely not. It's not about shaming people or going, oh my God, what the hell's the matter with you? What the hell did you do that for? Like a really bad parent, like just making you feel like your worst self because you did something, or a teacher, like, just totally calling you out in front of the classroom, this is nothing to be embarrassed about. We're all going through this. I mean, oh my God, if I told you how many mistakes I've made in my life, I mean, let's just like not even get started, But the thing is, when you walk away with these lessons in your hand, you don't have to keep repeating the same things over and over again. And that is where humanity is, for those willing, this is such a critical time that we don't have to keep repeating the mistakes anymore.
Yeah.
Because we can stand and recognize, wow, where is compulsion working to my disadvantage?
Yeah, right.
And where can consciousness work to my advantage?
Right.
It's
right.
not like we're going to solve everything in one day.
Right. And it's not like being conscious means that you have to be enlightened. It's just setting an intention for what it is that you want in the best way. It's like, okay, so when we're beating ourselves up and stupid, if we've done something
Yeah.
that is,
I still do that.
it's so
The hell's the matter with you?
it's so human. We're so hard on ourselves, and most of us are our worst critics. And even
Yes, we are.
even the people who seem the most together have their own dramas going on behind the scenes.
Mhm.
But what you get to do is just recalibrate. Like, what is it that I need right now? What's happening that's important for me? And what I am prone to do is to look at this lifetime, like, remember, Nora, you're a human playing Nora in this lifetime. How do
That's
you
right.
be?
Yeah.
Like, I'm just in this role as Nora Yolis Young right now. I'll be someone else another time, and I've been other people before.
You've been plenty of others prior to now. Yeah.
Yeah, what's the juice I want to get out of it? Do I want to look back on my life and go, I really got caught up in bullshit, or I used the opportunity, these moments of trickiness, as opportunities, as springboards to develop something totally empowering for myself. What is that for you? If this is, for those who are watching and resonating with this and going through this, what is this opportunity for you? How could you shift this so that you're not taking yourself down the tubes into despair? Because when you're in a place of despair, you can't see.
You're never going to make an empowered decision from that energetic space.
No, not at all. No. And
it won't empower you. You're just going to probably, when we make, well, especially, we know that about making any emotional based decision, it typically attracts more emotionally based experiences. And not that we obviously are not in a feeling universe and all that, but in a way that we're not on the plus side of the emotion. If we're in a negative emotional space and not feeling the plus side of what we should be and could be, well, we're just going to attract more things on that level and that vibration,
right.
So that's what a Mercury, I mean, that's why I just love and appreciate the value of astrology so much, is that it gives us these, it allows us to have these moments in time, just like when we sleep every day. You know, we're habitually need to revamp, recharge, reboot. That's what your sleep cycle does on a daily basis. But what Mercury retrograde does is does it every, you know, it's about every 3 months, give or take. You know, sometimes it spans, it depends on how it hits in the calendar year, but we had a Mercury retrograde mid-January through early February. Now we're in the one we're about to engage in through early June. We're going to have another one in September through early October. And then we close now. What'll also make that Mars retrograde extra juicy, reflective, is the fact that we close 2022 under not only Mars retrograde, but another Mercury retrograde will start just before the end of the year. So that's intense. It's going to be very intense. I you know, we'll be talking about that in other episodes, but like I said, what we're going to be watching to conclude May and open June is going to be kind of a preview of what coming attractions that's going to be all about. So your Mercury retrogrades, I love this, it's a mathematical fact. When you add the hours in a calendar year's time, so the Mercury retrogrades, as I just mentioned, those, you know, how it's working throughout 22. And if you're on my site, sharitastar.com, you'll see the Mastering Mercury Retrograde article that gives you all the do's and don'ts and all the fun things you need to know about how to take advantage of Mercury retrograde, which is, again, understanding it's a cycle of reflection. So that we utilize these 3 weeks to go, hey, let's go back to what already exists and look at it all. And that's what we're going to reboot and recharge all of this stuff. And if we spend our time in that kind of intentional focus, we're going to have so much delicious fun with the retrograde, instead of, oh, I'm going to force matters for the future that I want to have all this not going to happen long-term success with. It's going to be riddled in human error. Things I'm going to have to go back and fix. I'm going to end up wasting my time. It's just not going to be it's not going to be as fun.
No,
so we have to be able to allow ourselves to find fun in reflecting. And if people can get into that understanding of, I'm going to have fun in reflecting. But I want to finish the point. The hours of the Mercury, I'm such a good tangent girl. Plus we are doing this where, you know, God knows where the conversation is going to go anyway.
I love it. Perfect.
So
the
when
hours,
you add up, pardon?
I was going to say the hours that you're adding up. I was just reminding you. Yeah.
Yeah. So when you take the hours that take all those 3 to 4 retrogrades throughout any given calendar year, you take those hours in the 21 days, 3 weeks, add them all up, divide it all out by 365, it equivalates the amount of hours we sleep in a calendar year.
Oh, wow.
Like the average of the hours of the Mercury retrogrades, all compiled up, is the average amount of time you would naturally sleep over the course of a calendar year. It's just kind of crunched into different 3-week time frames. So that's what it's for. And I'm not saying sleep through the Mercury retrograde, but recharge, reboot, understand that generality about it, to use it to your advantage, and expect that you're going to need backup plans, and you're going to watch your schedule change. You know,
it's like
I have
spa season naturally patterned.
It's great for spa season. Yes. Go take yourself to the spa, you know, recharge, make time to relax in your life. And I think under these energies, no matter whether it's retrograde time or not, but obviously what has happened in the last 2 years, and we were already in the space of people never were allowing themselves enough time to relax anyway. They had such an overtaxed schedule, and, you know, busy bubble this and da-da-da-da-da, and I got to grind, and I got to go, and I got to do
action.
And I got to stay stressed out because that's what the world is programming me to do, which I don't find very healthy. That's just me. So this is the beautiful time to find relaxation in your life. It's the most important thing to do under the retrograde is to find space in your life to relax.
Yeah.
Because you
There's
probably haven't taken it
There's
in a
probably
while.
a way, there's probably some scientific way of studying the natural, the nature pattern that this is implying. You know, I notice in my work that people often people who have a hard time relaxing will get sick when their body's like, you need to, you know, it's like they won't
Because
take
the body's like, if you're not going to slow down, I'm doing it for you.
exactly. And I'm wondering too, if that's something that we can see in patterns around retrogrades. It's like your body is like, now is the natural time for you to be chilling out. So you're going to have to go ahead and do that.
Slow it all down too.
down.
You and I were talking about that as well. Like, we don't want to like try to solve the world's or our own problems under the retrograde, but it's a great time to do the research. But don't fill your schedule to the point that you're going to beat yourself up because you didn't get the stuff done.
Yeah.
Because, you know, I know I'm a classic. I still do it to this day. I put a list of things to do in one day's time, and I don't know who I think I'm fooling that I'm going to get all this stuff done, unless I hired a clone or maybe had two more. And then I look at I'm like, oh, I didn't get that done. And then, you know, I got to like correct all that, thinking like, you were just unrealistic to write all that down in one 24-hour or working hour day period, you know.
I don't think you're alone in that. I don't think you're, I mean, I don't.
Oh, I think no, because we all get kind of fooled that, oh my God, I've got to stay busy and I got to do, if I don't get all this done, then I'm a failure, you know. Like we're being taught this all the time, and I mean, I've fallen for it too, and I'm still working on that as a human being, not to expect too much all the time, because, you know, you got to focus which is why I always follow my lunar calendar. It tells me what area of my life to spend my couple days on, and if you work in this, you know, forecasting is so deliciously layered with just how to work in a flow in your life and not get caught up in all of that. It really ends up being busy doesn't mean you're productive, and it doesn't mean you accomplish a damn thing.
No, I don't, and I don't suffer from that. Maybe it's because I grew up on a tropical island, or
I think that may have a lot to do with it, girl. You grew up in a relaxed environment.
Yeah, it's like, that doesn't resonate. I'm gonna have a nap now. But I think I've also found in my life that if I feel overwhelmed, I have the type of body that if I'm not in alignment with it, I will feel like shit. I will, like, something won't be in flow, and I'll get a headache, or I'll be low energy, or like I have to be really honoring
your
of
body tells you. Well, and that's so Taurus of you as well, because you're an earth sign, and you really, not to say anybody isn't in touch with the earth or their nature, but Taurus is, you're the fixed earth sign, so you're so like, hey, if this isn't resonating,
it's just not going to work. It's not going to work for me.
It's not going to work for me.
Yeah.
And as we were talking before we started, we were talking about the beauty of Taurus energy is so cool at taking naps.
Oh, I'm such a good napper. Oh,
you guys are great nappers. I mean, every Taurus I know, I was telling you about my grandfather before, you know, he was a beautiful napper. And as a kid, I used to pester him to no end because I'm not a napper. I just don't have that in my, and I sleep the long hours when I go to bed, but I've never been a habitual napper. And I just have the other kind of, you know, I just go throughout the day. But I tell you, I've learned a lot about slowing down myself, and grief taught me a lot about slowing down too, because I had to. And then I had to worry about, well, now you're a little too slow.
Well, I mean, That's what we get to adjust. You know, I think for me, what being too slow feels like is that's when depression will set in. Like I'll feel,
And like we were talking before about picking up on things. You were talking about how you were picking up on stuff earlier today and you knew it wasn't you.
Mhm.
And there's such a struggle with the collective depression right now. And I mean, and I know I'm picking up on it. I know it's not really me. I'm not a depressed person. It's not that. I mean, I'm quite a bit of an empath, I do believe, but I'm not a depressed person by nature. I'm very truthful, very honest, and very kind of maybe tell it to you like it is, but I'm going to find a way to make it work or see the glass half full or just empower you to stand in what you need to. But, yeah, feeling depressed,
Love
moving through
joy.
grief is one thing, but that's not depression, you know.
No. Well, I know I've known you for a long time now, and you're a person who loves to experience joy and laughter. And I mean, I think bringing up grief is a really important thing right now in our collective experience
And
because
that's collectively everywhere. We have to look at that too. I
yeah,
mean,
the
yeah, grief is
loss.
not going away either.
No. I mean, so losses of life, losses of the way the world works, losses of
Yep. Our old
familiarity.
life,
Yeah, it's a
the old
collapse of
life is no
familiar.
longer the same.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
And
and
now we're in unfamiliar territory. Yeah.
yeah, and I
Yeah.
think people who don't understand that grief is valid and a natural part of the healing process within each of us. I
Yeah.
mean, it's a biological thing that happens, and it's an energetic thing. And when I know for me, when I experience grief, I need more sleep. I need much more
Yes.
self-care. I need to be really diligent about doing the things that I know just keep me on track, or else I'm gonna really
Hmm.
struggle, you know,
Yeah.
and go into that compulsion place and be whacked out, like not, I won't have my center. I'll be off center.
Hmm. And you're allowed to be,
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think,
you know.
yeah, I think being able to express that in a place where other people, I mean, you and I are healers, so we're in a space of like, we get to be human and we know what that's like. I think humanity, by and large, doesn't really give, the collective doesn't give permission to be
No. Well, you're not taught to give yourself permission.
right, right. And
The
that's
programming doesn't teach you or drive any of that into your own consciousness. I mean,
there's no leeway.
it drives compulsion. I truly think the majority of the, what do you want to call it, the narrative, the programming, whatever you want to call it,
Mhm.
it's all about compulsive. It wants you to be as compulsive as possible because you also don't make empowered decisions from a place of compulsiveness.
Yeah, yeah. It's like the collective
Some of
story,
that too.
the human collective, the working human collective is that the disempowered sort of narrative or bandwidth really is you can be as compulsive and obsessive to your detriment as you're willing to get. And I think what we're both saying in our own ways is, raise the bar of what you expect for your self-care, like have that be more of a priority in your life, and your life will change for the better.
Mhm. Absolutely. And speaking of just your little, I'm just going to give you a little thing. We pulled up the map. We pulled up Nora's map. So your first portion of the retrograde program is that Mercury's all in your thinking and mentality. So
Mhm.
he's all taking a station, taking a break, and he's like, Nora, we're gonna clear out some old things, just whatever you don't need, and then it's going to you. So you have a 28-degree Taurus sun, because you're so near the end of the sun's journey through Taurus as you celebrate your birthday. So this Mercury retrograde is going to be on top of you.
So
Eventually,
when you say it's
I'm going to give you
clearing out,
those exactitudes. So on the 22nd of May, the Mercury will move from the sign of Gemini back into Taurus. And then that's where it finishes the retrograde through June 3rd. So 22nd of May, everybody, the shift collectively from Gemini to Taurus will unfold. So it'll take until, and I just want to make sure I got, okay. So it'll take until the 25th of May for the Mercury to get back over your 28th degree of your Saturn sun. So that'll be like around the 25th is when, like days surrounding the 25th, you're going to feel that. Now, meanwhile, that Saturn will only reach 26 degrees of Taurus to turn to station at the end and turn around.
but what does that mean? What does that mean? That what
it means is that so your natal sun is in your third house. So this is why you are so well designed to work with people and help the way that they're thinking. Your identity is very thinking, communication oriented. I mean, even though you're this Taurus individual, your Taurus sun sits in a very mental, intellectual, communicating and movement oriented at that house area of your life. We call it houses, in the 12 pieces of the pie are called houses in astrology, which just confuses everybody. So I say it's one of the rooms of your life. So the whole thing is like your whole astrology chart is your map, and I think the 12 pieces are the rooms of your life. It's just a better analogy, visual for people. So as that Mercury retrograde will cross back over your natal sun during that time frame, right on the 25th. So it's going to take, 24th through like the 26th, you'll be getting Mercury retrogrades on top of your sun. So it's really going to want to, like, from the inner world of your identity, it's going to really churn out, I would say, for you, old writing, old journals you have, old projects or existing things. I don't know. And do you have a book that you're going to be publishing, or?
It's still in the editing phase. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Yeah. So this retrograde is so good to because you've already done it. It's already there. It's already in existence.
Done. Yeah.
It's already, hi, I'm here. So this is the perfect time to just revamp, re-edit it, redo whatever you want to do with it. And you may discover the joy of a Mercury retrograde is the recreative process in whatever we've already done.
Oh, that feels really.
And then when you move forward past June 3rd in that shadow period, which is the shadow that right now we're right on the edge of the approach. The approach is that started April 26th for this one. That's when over these last couple of weeks, we saw everything build up in preview of what the retrograde's full attractions will be like. And then past June 3rd through the 18th of June is the shadow. So that's when we get to iron out the wrinkles in the retrograde fabric and smooth out. If we had to make important decisions, which we weren't anticipating, we may discover we had a couple errors. We got to go fix that. Oh, it's just got to get fixed again. And then, it may be an inconvenience, but that's it. So that's why we want to plan to the best of our ability, not to do any major matters of importance under the retrograde timing itself, because it allows more inefficiency in our lives versus productivity, where the productivity of a retrograde, especially from Mercury, is the research, the redoing, the revisiting, the revamping, that recharging, rebooting, to the best of our ability. And that's it. And then you get this little snippet clip where that just so like the day it's moving over your sun, your sun just so sits on the edge of your third house. Like it's just at the very, very, very beginning of the start of the house. So then the Mercury is going to go back into your earning power. past the 25th.
Mhm.
And it will finish that retrograde through June 3rd, saying, well, Nora, what are you going to reflect upon in how you earn your money, and
Mm,
how you pull value into your life, and how you pull in your security? So
mm.
that's
That's
your
great.
retrograde. That's your retrograde homework, girl.
That is all that stuff is on the table already. It's like I was talking
Well,
to.
you've done it under the approach. You
Yeah,
see,
yeah, yeah.
you've already gone through this energy under the approach. Now the homework of the reflection is going to start. You knew what was going to be coming. Yeah, sure.
And it's so
Yeah.
funny what feels, I think in reviewing this, and thank you for going through that, I think people watching may be able to resonate. Like, we already have a natural inclination to do these things. I mean, I was just recently talking to a new person about like making sure my retirement is established perfectly, like doing all of the sort of back end things that are like, tightening things up as I move into, I'm turning 50 this, in about a, couple weeks. So
It's a good club. I'll let you know. I'm just a year ahead of you on the 50 club, so it's a good club so far. It's not exactly how I envisioned life at 50. Well, I'm minus someone important who I thought was going to be with me for that, but that was, the way all that worked out.
well,
So
there's a lot of deliciousness for us women, us gals, and as we age, and we can be amazing and sexy and grounded.
I love where the age is. I wouldn't want to be any other age at this time. Or I don't like the word age anyway. Kind of always thought it's like I don't want to. I wouldn't want to be at any other level of maturity. That's what I call it instead.
I'm
I
so
wouldn't want to be at any other level than I am right now. I wouldn't want to be 30 years mature right now. I wouldn't want to be 40. And God bless, I wouldn't want to be a child right now either. I'm glad I'm where I'm at.
I
I'm very
know.
appreciative of that,
I see my kids.
for what this is all about, what we're doing here, why we're witnessing all of this, and why we're gonna witness this incredulous healing time, because that's really what it's truly all about.
Yeah.
We're
Why we
healing what's
came.
been so broken.
It's why we
Pardon?
came, right? It's why we came to the planet.
And that's a true thing. And I know you and I've had this conversation too, about like how we're picking up on the people questioning, well, what the hell am I still here for? If this is good, this much of a mess
Mm-hmm.
as it's appearing, then what am I here for, and how am I even going to make it?
Yeah.
Because there's so many people in this despair, like they don't know how they're going to make it through these times, because they don't know if they're going to be able to sustain themselves. They don't know if, I mean, I'm blown out of the water with what the prices are of things. And I mean, that is not a lie. It is the truth. You go to the gas pump, that's not a lying. Your fuel company's telling you what this costs, and so on. And, people are getting very daunted. And you and I are, we've been picking up on people questioning that.
Mm-hmm.
But there's still a way to attract the abundance you need to stay sustained and stay empowered in how to still utilize that law of attraction to your advantage, because that law of attraction still works. In fact, it probably works more powerful than ever. But what the people promoting fear are doing is, they know how much fear attracts more fear, and just, so the people kind of stuck in that rut of panic, which is, I'm sorry, now we're getting like 2 years old of it.
Mm-hmm.
We're just going to try to keep throwing more of that at you. But granted, yes, that's not going to go away or ease up in that, how that's going to keep being presented. At some point, it is going to run out of steam.
Yeah, well, and I think there's incredible opportunities to be. So I know for me, like if I'm feeling like doubt or like things are not going well, it's really important for me to feel like I can give back to humanity. I already do in my work, but I also feel grateful that I have the ability to volunteer. And so the idea of like volunteering is very empowering,
Yes.
because think about how much need is being created by the pandemic and by food prices going up. That means that people aren't able to afford their basic human needs. And so,
Yes.
consider volunteering a little bit of time.
Yes. That's going
There's
to be critical.
reconnect with
Local
the community,
community.
be a part of.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes, that is amazingly important in what is coming, especially during this next year overall. What I can see in this country it doesn't put a smile on my face, and how these cycles are going, but it is about healing that's happening. I mean, this country's gotten to a point where all of these are other things you'll also find on my website. Check out the Pluto return information, and Healing America from Within, which is the current year that we're in as a nation, and what that really requires. And it is happening in the country's thinking and mentality as well.
Yeah.
And it's interesting. There's a very strong aspect in the country's chart right now that was also going on during the Civil War. The last time this aspect ever happened was during the Civil War. And, for anybody who's really looking at what is being presented to us with discerning eyes, they are just wanting us to stand divided. They don't want us to be coming together in compassion. They don't want us to do this, because dividing and conquering people is how fear and corruption can keep going along to their advantage, certainly not to our advantage. So
I think
this is where, if we understand this going on and stand up to that,
Mhm,
and not allow that to overwhelm us,
mhm.
to the best of our abilities, but kind of become a warrior, and go, hey, you know what, I this isn't just, and this isn't right, what's going on, but I'm not going to stand there and scream and yell at another human being and think that I'm going to solve that issue. But
Mhm,
does it take a little telling it like it is? Perhaps, yes,
mhm.
gently enough as possible. But
Mhm.
but our communities moving forward, what is happening on a local level is so important. It's more important than it ever was. And think about, go back in history a little bit in our nation, and maybe even to the Civil War, if you want to like take it back to that. What did they do? They created all this divide back then. How different was the local community back in the Civil War times? And how has that changed? Obviously, in the course of the many years in modernization that we've all gone through. But the thing of it is that America has become too me,
Hmm.
and we're not together. And
Yeah.
the last time I checked, there is no I in team. And, I know that's an old cliche statement, but it really does, kind of sum up what needs to start happening here. Because I don't want to say that, and maybe I'll disturb people and trigger people by saying this, but, I do think there's a lot of narcissism in America. And not that there's not narcissism across the world,
Mhm.
but America is very me oriented, and it's become very, oh, it's disposable and replaceable. Okay. And
You know,
all of that is not going to sustain anymore.
well, I think I think that what I see in that is there's so much despair that comes out of it, because I think this is my understanding, is that people are being shown that this is what's going to make you happy. And people are
Mm,
finding, after plugging into that sort of like hamster wheel, it's like, I'm devastated and miserable. what do I do? And I think a great way to sort of redefine value is through unity, is through connection with humanity. You know, there are food banks, there are places, domestic violence centers. There are, I mean, you can pick up trash on the side of the road, like find a way that resonates with you, that is of service, that, like we were talking about earlier. I just started, like, when I, in 2000 or in 1999, I got certified as an EMT because I just thought that was a good thing to know how to do, not because I had plans to actually work in that field. I was already doing archaeology at that time. And now all of a sudden I'm feeling like, oh, I need to re-up my certification. I need to know, I need to be a person that my community can rely on for just basic emergency care if needed. And like, if there, or I'm actually in the process of signing up with being a disaster relief volunteer as well. I don't know if there are going to be volunteers, but my guidance is saying sign up to be a disaster relief volunteer. So I'm just following my guidance. And it, to me, when I think about, okay, if I'm getting an intuitive hit to do something, how does that feel? Like, does that feel resonant for me? Can I envision myself? Because I was talking to my husband about it. Like, can I envision taking care of people who have been in a disaster? The answer is unequivocally yes, absolutely. That feels really good to me. He tunes into that. He's just like, no. Like, maybe he could,
not in his wheelhouse, and it doesn't have to be everybody's wheelhouse. Not everybody's capable of doing such a thing, and you do have the design. You're designed to do it. It does work. I mean, I could see that. I could tell you 50 reasons why you could do that. But we won't get into all those. We'll do that another time by ourselves. But yeah, see, and that's how I think what you're saying is so important for people to also start listening to these flashes of whatever intuition they're getting, whatever gut things are showing up, because everybody has a different way that they're meant to serve. Not everybody can serve the same way. Obviously, we'd never have the variety that we have in the world. So some people are going to be that, what you're talking about, like, hey, here's the disaster relief people coming in. They're going to be able to, bandage up whatever it is that's necessary. Other people know how to fix plumbing. Other people know how to fix cars. Other people know how to, whatever it is that's going to need to happen. I don't know how intense it's going to really get. I mean, I can tell you this is intense what's coming. It's already here. It's just not opened. It's like, when you open up a can and there's the air comes out. We've opened the air out of the can, but we haven't turned the can opener all the way to open it up and uncover the can that's coming of what? And I think it's a lot more than can of worms, is what we would call it. But
whatever we can handle it.
We're going to have to handle it. And what we also are going to need to understand is whatever losses we may or may not see, these souls have signed those contracts, and we have to have that. And I know that's kind of hard for some people that may trigger people too, like, oh no, wait, how? Every soul signs a contract that they know what they're, even if it's a sudden death, a sudden loss, a sudden whatever the case is, they signed up to be a part of that experience. That is part of what their soul was supposed to do. No matter if it's an accident or whatever the case is, or they get an illness, it's all part of the contract. And that's hard for a lot of people to wrap their head around. And I'm not trying to convince anybody of anything, but I invite an open mind to it, is that soul contracts are signed for all of this. So one of the things we're going to watch is, there's a lot of contracts that will end, and they're going to take their work into the spirit world. And that's also what is going to be helping us through the next, how we are going into things more intensely as the year progresses from here,
Well,
you
and to
know.
me, excuse me, for me, that means, I mean, because we could all die, any of us could die at any minute.
Exactly.
I also agree that the way you're living your life also has an impact on how long you're going to be. So if you as a soul agree to have a life where you're discovering these things, if you don't do that, you may have an earlier death time. It's just they're opportunities for your soul. They're not pain. It's not penalty. It's an opportunity for your soul to say, this isn't exactly what I wanted. I'm gonna head out. It's time for me. It's a new, or
Mhm.
it's an early exit. But either way, you can live your life to the fullest in each moment. I think that's ultimately what knowing that we're temporary in these bodies.
It's all just
Do it how you want to do it. Plug in all the way. Live your life to the fullest if you can, because this is temporary for all of us. And
yep, it sure is.
whether shit gets weird and dicey and like we don't know what it's going to be like. We're all going to kick the bucket, so we might as well go in all the way. To me, that is just the energy of the life that I feel like I chose to come into, is just like, all right, let's freaking go. Let's go. And I still like to take naps. Like you
Because
can
you're
have
smart.
that energy and still take your
Because
little
you're
nap.
smart. You know when to recharge and just get earthy. And I'm just gonna like take a nap on this little
Little
leafy tree over
5-minute
here.
reboot. But it
But
doesn't need to be horrible. I mean, I don't know if any of you
no,
resonate with this, when, like the hardest things that I've ever been through in my life were painful, yes, but they're in some ways the most beautiful and profound things that I've ever been through. So, we can go down the tubes and think this is the shittiest time and life hasn't, but I mean, I think, that saying of, these are the worst of times, these are the best of times. It is possible to
it's
experience.
so in that space right now. And and inviting people. Like we were also, you and I were talking about that earlier as well. I'm not afraid to die. If something happened to me, you know,
Meteor
tomorrow,
hit your
today,
house.
an hour from now, whatever, I know I have lived to the best of my ability at this point. I mean, even since I was a young kid, and I know my own natal chart actually sort of explains this, and I won't get into all that, but I was kind of interested in death as a kid. Like I kept like having this like weirdness, like, oh, if I died, what would I come back as? Like I was always having this conversation, and my biggest thing was I wanted to come back as a bird because I wanted to fly. And I was
Aw,
like, how cool would it be just to be a bird and just fly? And maybe that's going to be my next life. And I was maybe like, I don't know, 10, maybe a little younger, thinking about all this stuff when I was a kid. So
so
I've always had this thing. And, I've hospiced two grandmothers in my life. And I did that with my partner last summer, even though I did it virtually. Death is beautiful. It is not easy, but there is something beautiful in that challenge. I've had at least, things weren't sudden deaths, like sudden accidents. I think that is what people can't. They're harder death, challenges to take on because you had no preparation for that.
yeah,
Like just like, oh, that just suddenly happened, boom, done. You had no explanation, no preparation, and that is wicked. I mean,
that's hard.
that those are trickier ones. But when you get to walk a person home, well, there's beauty in that. And I can't say I haven't personally experienced it more than once at this point. So and more naturally with the elders in my life, and not so naturally with someone my personal age.
Mhm.
So wasn't supposed to happen that way, but it did anyway. And like we know, hey, everybody's got a different contract. And I have had to still come to terms with that, because I wish that contract was not that way. But
Course.
there's nothing I can do about that, you
No,
know.
it's and what you say is so true. Those sudden experiences and of loss, and what I would say, and I don't know if you've ever done this, but I remember in 2003 when my father passed of a 2.5 year cancer
Hmm.
experience. I went to a bereavement group, and it was the best thing I could have done. And I highly, for people who are navigating grief, I highly recommend it. Find a bereavement group around you. And I think, I don't know why people have weird experiences with feeling comfortable going, but I would just say my own experience with a bereavement group, a wonderful one in Marin County in Northern California. It's just a place where people are going through loss in the same way, and you're not, no one's giving you advice, they're just talking about their own experience. And I
It's
think,
just a place to talk about it. And
yeah,
because you do have to do that. I mean, yeah, you have to, or journal it, however it works for you. Everybody, some people are not talkers
yeah, yeah,
about that, and maybe writing down, but it has to get out of you somehow. And even if you are like, and grief is a lot about tears, but grief is beyond what tears is as well. I mean, it's not just, hey, I'm going to sit around and cry my eyes out. It's really unpacking, what needs to be unpacked, and putting either forgiveness where it might belong, or whatever the personal experience needs to be, because it's all a different experience for everybody. There isn't a one size fits all. Here's the grief way that we're all going to fix you, like, no. And I don't think grief is ever really truly over. I
mhm,
mean, I know in the case of my grandmother's, for example, I mean, I could still cry maybe at the drop of a hat, depending on what trigger may or may not come up.
mhm.
And it's been over 10 years. And I, on a personal level, with what's recently transpired, that hasn't even been a year in my life yet. So, you know, it's always going to be there, but it's just where, that's where all that power of now comes back in.
Mhm.
And well, but I'm still here myself in this moment of now. And the more I'm back in that, but you have to heal that past in order to keep, you can't really be in the now unless your past is kind of dealt with, because otherwise it will just keep.
Re-emerging. Well, what the way I like
You're
to,
back. Hello, I'm still over here.
what I like to how I refer to it in my work is grief is a loss of familiarity. So it could be on a small
Yes.
scale or it could be on a large scale, and the grief process is renegotiating a new familiarity with that loss in the fabric of who we are. So
Mhm.
it affects us on a microscopic level, on an atomic level, and we're having to re-navigate sort of post loss. This is me brushing my teeth now post loss. This is me, taking a shower post loss. This is my life after this loss, and that takes time, and it takes whatever, it takes honoring what's coming up, the anger, the resentment, as like what comes up. It's messy, it can be ugly, it can be freeing, and I think that's why those bereavement groups are really great too, because you don't even need to actually speak. You can just sit there
You
and
could
listen
just sit
to
there and listen.
yeah,
Yes, which
listen
is
to other
really
people
important.
who are going through. What I found in my experience was, because at the time it was the most significant loss and pain I had experienced in my life to that date. And then I was around other people who had been through much more difficult loss than I had.
Mhm.
Sudden death or death
Yeah.
of a child, um,
I
you know,
Oh, and that,
really,
yeah,
really,
yeah.
really,
That's very out of order,
yeah.
obviously. Yeah.
Yeah. And so
And
just
that's,
being,
I think, probably one of the hardest. It has to be. I mean, I don't even have a child, so I couldn't even plausibly relate to that. But I can understand it, with
totally.
compassion.
Well, you
And
have
I can't
compassion,
imagine as
right?
a parent what that feels like, that there's no greater loss. I wouldn't imagine so.
Yeah, yeah. And so when I think too, what I remember feeling like my friend group when I lost my dad, there was really only a certain period of time that they had the bandwidth for me to be in grief, and then they were sort of like, yeah, let's get back to life as normal. But life wasn't normal for me, so I felt like I needed to find other people that I could still be in the state of grief that I was in, but still be able to function in my life. And I found
Yes,
that was helpful for me to have a place where I could be in a state of really sacred grief, and
exactly. And
yeah,
it's a very sacred space.
it is.
It's really extremely sacred.
Yeah.
And I mean, in it, they always, so obviously the passing of time does the things that it does. But like you say, you have to get used to the person. So it takes that year really, because you got to go through all the holidays, you got to go through all the birthdays, and just all the different dates of whatever special things were associated with any of it. And see, well, okay, here I am in this new thing. Like for me this year, I didn't expect how blown out I would be on Easter, and I was like a faucet all day, and it was worse than Christmas for some strange reason. Like I just didn't understand. Like, well, why? Because I'm even further away, but like, why is Easter like this? But we had spent like so many Easters, and things just kept coming up and coming up, and I was just like, oh my God. And then I get this glorious symbol of an eagle that day, which this it's a kind of a bit of a long story, which I won't get into, but he has shown me the symbol of an eagle. I've had this come in very from the beginning of this year. I started to get that, and as I was having these heavy moments on Easter, I was driving back from my friends from where I was, and this bald eagle, I mean, it came, it practically like just like into the windshield, and then I was just like, okay,
Hi, hon.
I gotcha, I gotcha, I gotcha,
Those are so important to not be put in the box of coincidence. Those
It's
are
never a
so
coincidence in my world. Oh no. Oh God, I will take so many signs. I like, and that's what I love about being, to me, that's being extremely conscious is just allowing yourself to see the signs. And of course, with me being the numbers girl that I am, they're always, everyone in spirit is always shooting me numbers, like anniversaries, birthdays, you name it. I get all that fun stuff. And I go and then that's what helps me through the grief too, is they're always there if you're willing to listen and just tap into it a little bit.
yeah.
Love never dies, and that's what for me eases the grief very much.
Mm.
And you can ask them for help right now in these crazy times, and I've gotten some response. Not, some things are taking longer to manifest than others, but
Yeah,
what's not slow in the universe right now, even if you're you know asking with all the, nothing's manifesting very quickly right now. That's one thing I notice, as much as hey, I know how to do this work, but there is there's a like a there's a delay. Let's put it that way. But
well, there's a delay, but then there's also really checking your vibration, and we got to check our vibration. And it's, I think with all of the drama that's going on, it's really easy to have
yeah,
a baseline of energy that is just, and coming out of winter too, for a lot of people, in the
yes,
United States.
and yeah, we were talking about that difference too, because yeah, where I live, I'm in the Northeast, and yeah, we had a little bit of a longer Yeah, and it didn't make anything feel like it's moving very quickly. And then now things are feeling, yeah, there's a movement happening because we're getting warmer. And things are, yeah, the things that were just sort of feeling like they were literally just stuck in the darn mud, and it's like, okay, all right, well,
Yeah.
I'll be I'll be patient.
And when you're
But
getting some spring movement right now, right? Like it's getting a little warmer.
oh, in fact, well, what's always been interestingly fun up here too, and this has happened over the course of years, it's not just recently, but it's like, so we're coming out of this like kind of chillier phase, and it's going to be like summertime by midweek, moving into the close of it. We're back in the 80s.
Oh, wow.
So it's just kind of like, okay, we're just going to skip the whole spring,
Thing.
whatever. We're going to lead you right into summertime. But of course, I think the weather will fluctuate into that Mercury retrograde in Gemini for a little bit. And we'll see what's happening by moving into, the latter part of May until it finishes in June. But, we never did get back to the eclipses. And
Yeah. Yeah. And we're gonna
I have it in my head, and I'm like, wow, we got it another, but it's like totally cool. There's a lot of things I do cover in the Mastering Mercury Retrograde workshop about the eclipses and all the energy of them, but in a very brief kind of.
and these are on your Patreon. This is you're on your
Oh
Patreon.
yes,
Yeah.
if you yes, my Soul Certainty community on Patreon.
Soul
We'll always have
community. Uh-huh.
they will have the latest lunarscopes, because I write, it's a horoscope for the new and the full moon. So the last new moon we had was the first eclipse of the season we're currently in. So that was April 30th.
Eclipse.
No, that was a solar eclipse in Taurus.
And it was so are we seeing these eclipses? I help me understand.
We didn't see it here, no, because there was something about the way we didn't see it here.
We just feel it.
I think you had to be a lot further in a southern. I think the southern hemispheres may or may not have seen it.
So sometimes if we're not seeing them, they're just in a place that we're not. They're
like,
not.
Yeah, like that one. I think when was that? Like the summer of 17. I can't remember, but that one that like it came all the way across in August that year across America. Yeah, this one that just happened wasn't like that. I mean, it wasn't in our alignment that way. But this one, by the way, I don't know what is, speaking of changing your income, I'm just gonna like give you a little tidbit here too. This solar eclipse that was the 30th, it conjunct your natal Mercury, in your earning power.
Cool.
So
right,
it's gonna like pull in, and eclipses will pull in, a waxing phase is always 2 weeks. We pull in the energy from the new moon, and then we reach the point of completion of a full moon, and this ebbs and flows every month all year long, about 12, sometimes 13 times. So you have a really punch because it's a solar eclipse, so that extends that waxing phase for 6 months, because this one was not a total eclipse, it was just partial. So but there's some new way you're going to earn communicating, new way you're going to earn moving in your life, new way you're going to earn, whatever it is. And you may not discover it immediately under this retrograde. You're going to notice it's just going to trickle in. You may start to get some ideas of how this is working, but you may not be able to, under the retrograde, act upon them. If that makes sense. Like you can perceive the information, receive the information, but you just don't want to be like agreeing to something. You really want to last long term under a retrograde cycle.
Got it.
You can, and then it may not, in 6 months it may fizzle out, and then you're going to have to go do something else. So it depends on how people, what kind of experience do you want?
That makes sense. There's a lot of projects.
So that's that eclipse. And then that's going to pull us into the 16th of May. So that's coming up a week from today. We have the lunar eclipse, which is pairing what happened on the 30th of April. And that is in your wealth. So lunar eclipse, full moon. opens up a passage of reflection long past the waning phase. And the waning phase takes us back to the next new moon. So we're always pulling off somewhere in our life once a month in reflection in our charts until the next new moon arrives, which will be on the 30th of May under the retrograde. So that's another new moon kind of mucked up and hold off for a minute. Hang on. Don't take action quite yet, but take in the information, research, etc. But don't act on it to
Take
the
in
best
the
of your
wealth. Go ahead and put the wealth in the bank.
Exactly. So you're going to be so these two eclipses are very much involved with how you pull money into your life, and then how do you make it wealthier, and what are you reflecting on to work with the balance of the two of them in your life.
That makes sense.
And what that goes. Now it's also your very like root chakra kundalini energy, the 16th of May eclipse.
Cool.
So that's gonna like it's really like releasing old energy from your real core source, the Abraham Hicks, like your core source energy. It's really gonna just purge some whatever it is you just don't need in your space anymore. And it transforms because this is a Scorpio eclipse. So it's going to be very transformative for the collective.
Cool. That should be fun because we're going to be away for my birthday.
That's why you're going away. I remember you telling me. I had said, oh, maybe expect some weirdness in traveling, which is typical under Mercury retrograde. But so it's a good, perfect time to get out of Dodge and pull into that space of reflection. Yeah. And rest, recharging, rebooting.
We're going to be, and I this island girl needs some ocean time.
Yes. Yes. That's one thing I miss very much. I haven't been to the ocean in quite some time, but I hope to get back this summer. It's one of my set my intentions. I haven't put that on a new vision board I made recently.
Yes.
So.
I need
Get me back.
come and be in my waters.
Yeah.
Well,
It has to happen.
Thank you for going over those eclipse things and using I get a free read out of it. So I appreciate that. Thank you so much. And Sharita, as always, you're a gem when it comes to how to navigate the nuance of the stars and the planets and the moons and all of the dynamics that we can use as tools to enhance our lives. So thank you very much. I really value that. And
always my pleasure. Always my pleasure.
And people, if this stuff is resonant, if you have questions, please don't be afraid to ask. We're all in this together. And
yes, absolutely.
We're going to be having some new shows coming up, so stay tuned. And until then, happy retrograde navigation.
Happy retrograde under eclipse and Mercury retrograde under eclipse season.
Woohoo! All right. Until next time. Aloha.